interestingly enough, last night I went to see Marianne Williamson, who is amazing. If you've never seen her in person, were you there? Anybody?
Yes.
Yep. Oh, yes, Heather was there. Hi, Heather. It was an incredible experience. She was on fire about, I don't know if we want to call us cultural creatives, spiritual beings, people that are awake and alive and aware about really now becoming awake and alive and aware. She talked a lot about us not wanting to look at things because it's difficult and it's messy. And so she was screaming at us sometimes, you gotta wake up and you gotta start looking at this stuff, people. We are it if there's gonna be change happening. And it brings me to today's talk, which is actually one of my favorite books just because of the title. It's called The Gospel According to Starbucks. And that is why I bought the book. Just for the title. Because I think I was living in Santa Fe at the time. I was like, oh, home. And it was green. It just caught my eye right away. But they talk about brew. Because that's the connection. But that's probably about the only connection with Starbucks in the book, other than the fact of the way they do business and their platform. And so the gospel, according to Starbucks, is about brew. It is about being real engages the world. And that really is who we're here to be. And so when you start with the being, what does that mean? It means, who are you being? Why are you here? What is your purpose? And all of us have one. And some of us don't want to pick up the phone and go, oh, you mean me? I'm supposed to do that. I have shared with people many, many times when I found Reverend Susie Shadle's church in Kirkland. And I took all the classes, and then I took the practitioner classes. Every time I took one of the next classes, Spirit was kind of fooling me into it. I'll never forget, because if somebody had said, okay, here's what it takes to be a practitioner. You're going to have to go through 2 years of training. Fine, I'm a good student, I could do that. First of all, you're going to have to interview with Reverend Susie and another minister. And I would be like, oh, no, that's not in my comfort zone. I don't want to do that. And the brilliance of her was probably knowing that. So she kind of just called me in for a meeting. And there was another minister there, and we sat down, and we were talking, and things were great. And then pretty soon she said, do you mind if, could you get up and leave the room? And I'm like, okay. I thought that was kind of odd. And I came back in, and she said, welcome to practitioner training. And I said, was this an interview? And she said, yeah, I was pretty sure I made that clear. Well, either she didn't with me, or I didn't connect. Because I really realized that my life purpose, I'm living it now. When I logged into something, it said, what is your favorite job? And I went, did I really put minister? And I did. Because this is, I had no idea. And if you'd asked me 16 years ago and said, Gayle, so this is what you're going to be doing, I would have said, oh, yeah, no, I'm not picking up that phone call. That's not me. And yet, we all have a purpose. There was one woman who stood up last night and said she was a kindergarten teacher. And Marianne Williams said, oh, bless you. You know, because her belief is, start with the babies. You worry about the babies. If you can start teaching kindness and compassion and that they're worthy up until the time they're 8 years old, we'll create a better society by starting there. And so what is your purpose? What are you here to be? And what I know to be true is when I talk to people that may have a block about what that is, I know that somewhere inside of them they know what that is. They absolutely know. And yet the truth is, it is scary to go from being in corporate America, managing people, to being a minister. The two careers look really, they appear to be really different. They're really not that different in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that I learned in the first 55 years of my life that suit me and are very helpful for what I'm doing now. And there were a lot of things that I needed to learn. Like I needed to learn to like myself. And that was a huge, huge commitment and step for me. And I know with a lot of people, because I've talked to them in different classes and stuff, I'm not the only one in life that has felt that I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or why on earth would people listen to me? And the truth is, each and every one of us remember what we believe here, God informed, right? Not a mistake, not unworthy. Every one of us is here for a purpose, or we wouldn't be here. One of the magnificent things that she said last night that we know, and yet sometimes when we hear it from another voice, it's like, oh yeah, of course. In the mind of God, everything's already manifested. Everything. The solution, to, if there's a problem, the solution is already there. In the mind of God. And remember, in the brilliance of all of this, we have been given free will. So the answer may be there, but if we're not going to unfold that so we can see it, so we can take the steps to make that manifest in form here, it's going to sit up there and go, well, you could have done this. And she gave some examples of that, and I wish I could remember all of them, and I can't, so I'm not going to use one. But many times in history, things lasted longer than they needed to, because at a juncture, somebody said we could do this, and nobody wanted to listen. And so being, who are you being? And if you're afraid to answer the call of your purpose, may I recommend that you see a practitioner and sit down with them and open up and say, you know, this is my call and I don't know how to do it. It scares me, because here's the thing. We've all been there, every single one of us. And just because I'm doing what I believe I've been called to do and I love what I'm doing, you know, I tell everybody all the time, what's your prayer request, Gayle? I love my life, more please. And yet I know there's still more. And I realize sometimes I stop my own self, because I've still got fear about stuff. We all do. We wouldn't be human if we didn't have fear. The difference is, who do you let drive your bus? Are you going to let the divine sit in the driver's seat, or are you going to let little fearful Freddie get up there and go, yeah, look, going to put on the brakes. I don't think we should go any farther or do anything else. I'm going to share with you now, because I've gone through it. Do you know how frightening it was for me? And maybe for some of you, I know for some of the board members, probably some of the practitioners, when we were struggling financially, and what we did as a group was pray. Pray and hold the high watch that this too was going to pass. And then we were gifted an amazing gift from me and Barbara Westcott Pearl that shifted that whole energy. Not in my time. I wish that would have happened 6 months ago. I probably would have slept better. And yet, that's where faith and trust come in, correct? I had to hold the faith. The board of trustees had to hold the faith. The practitioners had to hold the faith that God created this church. It's God's domain. And that's why we're here. And that's what we're called to do, is to build community. And so what's your purpose? And then I find it interesting, because that's part of our tagline, is being real. And the real part is how many, I know I used to be very guilty of this, have different ways of being with different people. I had my corporate America Gayle. I had my Gayle I had that Gayle. And then I had the Gayle that was with her family. I had multiple ways of being, and I'm not sure any one of them was really me. They were all pieces of me. but none of them were really me. It takes a lot of courage to show up and be real all the time. And sometimes people are going to roll their eyes because you're going to say something and it's not going to offend them, but they're going to think, there she goes again. And it's like Don Miguel Ruiz says, don't take it personal. It's better to be you and let people roll their eyes than start to tap down who you truly are, because God forbid you might offend somebody. Because the reality of life is you're going to offend somebody anyway. Even if you try to puppet everything you're supposed to do, all the things you're supposed to do. This person wants me to behave this way, I'm going to behave this way. Oh, but if I do that, then I'm going to offend this person over here, because, right? And the only person that's going to be crazy through that whole process is you. Be who you're supposed to be, who you know in your heart. Be bold. Every single one of us needs to be bold. Be honest. And sometimes honesty might hurt somebody's feelings. You don't have to be cruel to be honest. Do you know the difference? If somebody walks up to me and says, that dress looks terrible on you, that might be the truth, and that's just cruel, right? That's just cruel. That's not the kind of honesty I'm talking about. Now, if I say to somebody, how does this dress look on me? And they say something like, not so good. Then I've asked for an honest opinion. I would rather have somebody say, yeah, that's probably not the best dress I've seen you in, than say, oh no, that looks great. You know what I mean? Fortunately, I have a husband at home that has no problem telling me when things don't look great on me. God bless his soul. So real. How do you be real? How do you go to that inner place? One of the things that Marianne Williamson asked a lot of people last night in the question and answer was, what's your path? And at first, I was thinking that she was asking them, like, what's your life purpose? She was asking them what their spiritual practice is. What's your path? And she wasn't saying that it needed to be a half hour to an hour every day. In fact, at one point, she just said 5 minutes. And she wanted to make sure that we all understood every day. Every single day, you should stop and connect with the divine. You should read something that inspires you. Now, the interesting thing is, I know the longer you do any of that, the better. But let's say you did 5 minutes of each. 10 minutes. None of us is so busy that we don't have 10 minutes to connect to the divine. And like Randy said, if you wanted to, during the meditation, use me on Spotify or something and let it play lowly in the background. What better way to commune with the divine than just say, use me. Use me. That's what I'm here for. Use me. Because truly that is why we're here, is to be used by the divine to answer that call. And then engaging, well, it's just engages the, because they needed the T in there. Engages the. What does that mean? How are you engaging with other people? How many of us, even in our best intentions, kind of go to that place of judgment for whatever reason? And it's one of the it's the worst thing you can do to your soul, is to judge another. Because if we truly believe everything we do comes back tenfold, that's pretty heavy, isn't it? I remember the first time I really understood it, and it wasn't that I felt I was being judgmental, although in the term of judgmental, yes, I was. And I used to comment on clothes that people would wear. Not out loud so they could hear me, but make comments like, wonder if that person owns a mirror. And then the first time I spoke, standing up on stage, I realized there was an energy coming towards me that felt like judgment. Now, I don't think anybody was judging me. It was a very loving community. It was the community that I belonged to. And however, I could feel it. And what I got was, it was my energy that I put out coming back. And that's, Paul would say to me, so you're not, because he used to laugh, because he thought it was entertaining. And I thought, it's not entertaining because it's energy. That's what we forget. That's what we forget. It's all energy. And so engaging with others is really coming from love and compassion and harmony. And that gives up, if you work in corporate America, they call it Water Cooler Mondays, where we all gather around and talk about other people. That gives up, that sense of belonging comes from, I need to talk about somebody else to feel like I belong to this group, right? So engaging in true conversation with people. Leading with your heart. Being really tapped into the fact that we're all here and we're all connected. So yesterday I got an email. I don't know how many of you have read the book. I'm going to forget the name of the book. It's 8, Groups of 8. Changing the World with Groups of 8. Pardon?
The Power of 8.
The Power of 8, thank you. The Power of 8. And what she was asking for, and I signed this up, you do not have to participate if you don't want to. But she was asking for 8 religious science centers for spiritual living across the United States, 8 communities, to say that from now until that for 10 minutes a day, we would pray for love, compassion, and right action around immigration. And that's not saying what you think immigration should look like or be like. It's saying what you'll pray for is love, compassion, and right action, or whatever you choose, for 10 minutes. And what I found interesting, and I'm going to read this, because when I saw it, I was like, I didn't know Ernest Holmes felt this way, because I always thought when you do a treatment, it's over. And then I read this, and this is from Healing in the Mind. Always come to a complete conclusion when giving a treatment. That made sense to me. Always feel that it is done, complete, and perfect, and give thanks for the answer. I was good. I had heard that before. The treatment should be repeated daily until a healing takes place. Because remember, every time you say the treatment, it's a different treatment because your consciousness is different. If it takes 5 minutes, 5 days, or 5 years, the treatment must be kept until a healing is accomplished. This is the only method we know. It is not enough to say that everything is all right. This is true in principle, but in fact, in a human experience, it is only as true as we make it. Treat until you get results. A healing takes place when the patient is no longer sick, and until such time mental work should be done. So I invite you, until there is a resolution, whatever that looks like, to treat every single day for 10 minutes a day in the Power of 8 with 7 other communities. And like I said, you do not have to do this. I'm going to do it as a representative of Genesis. I invite everybody who wants to do it with me. You can do it at home, you can do it in your car. And really, the easiest way to do that is just say, I hold love, compassion, and right action in my heart for all concerned around the matter of immigration. Because that's open-ended, and that lets God manifest what needs to be manifested, instead of me telling it what I think should happen. And then the world. And the world, that's big. How do I engage the whole world? Start with your world, right? Start with your world. Start with your family. Start with your friends. Start with your neighbors. Be kinder. Today, because a lot of people who come here on a regular basis know that I have issues when I'm driving a car. They're personality issues. It's not the way I drive. And this morning, somebody went to pull out in front of us, didn't stop, was going to pull right out in front of us, and had they not stopped, we would have broadsided them. And I went into my usual reaction and said some unkind things inside the container of my car. And then when we got past, I said, oh, literally, nope. That's not true. That person was not paying attention. Certainly he didn't want to get hit by me or, by our car. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't on purpose. He was not paying attention. And so then what I said was, thank you, God, that he woke up before he came across in front of our car and stopped. That is the reaction I want to have going forward. It's going to take work, especially in those kind of in the moment crazy things. And yet they're called accidents for a reason. You ever had an accident and the person you hit or that hits you and they come out and they're just like you were hunting them down on the freeway just so you could slam into their car? We forget it's an accident. We forget that it's called the news because it's not supposed to be a daily occurrence. It's supposed to be news. And we get all tied up into this fear. And so start practicing with your closest friends and your family and your neighbors. That's your world. Start practicing with them about how to be kinder, how to be less judgmental, how to be less critical of somebody that doesn't agree with you, how to focus on what do you want instead of focusing on what is wrong. Ernest Holmes always said it, what you resist persists, or what we focus on grows, right? So how many of us are focusing on what's wrong with our world instead of focusing on the truth of what we want in the world? And it may seem like it's just a slight difference, and it's huge energetically, huge. Where are you putting your energy? Where are you putting your focus? So I invite you all to start living your life according to Starbucks. Or at least the brew portion of Starbucks. I invite you to really, being real engages the world. So how are you going to show up and really say, this is my purpose, this is who I'm going to be? How do you start to practice being real with everybody? Having those conversations when somebody sometimes says something and you're like, that's not my truth. How do you engage people to be part of this tribe of good in the world? And then I recommend that we start small and build from there. We start with Genesis, we build out. So let's pray. Right here and right now, knowing that there is the life, it is the one life, it is God's life, it is my life, it is all of your life, it is everywhere. It is that constant, unchangeable vibration of good that I choose to call God, and it is here present in, through, and as each and every one of us. It is in the air that we're breathing right now. It is that divine essence that vibrates around us, calling to us always, pulling us with the vision of who we are, why we're here, how great we can be. And so it is in that knowing, in that pull towards, that I just say yes. Yes to the manifestation of good in all our lives. Yes to each one of us living, breathing examples of what it means and how it is to live a life's purpose. Yes, to being real and honest, full of integrity, and being kind and compassionate. Yes, to knowing as we engage with each other and engage in our smaller circles of the world, energetically it will go out and vibrationally change other people's lives. It always has and it always will. So let's start here. Let's start with Genesis. Let's know the good that we are, the good that we're doing. Let's hold that on high. For it is from that place of love and compassion that I say thank you, God. Thank you for this community. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this knowing that each one of us, in that creative process of who we are, is manifesting the truth of how we will show up. So I turn all these words over knowing as it is spoken, it is so. It is manifested in the mind of God already, and I am pulling it forward into a physical manifestation in my life right here and right now as I let go and let God. And together we say, and so it is.